Welcome to our church library. There are lots of good resources here for you. One of the series of books we have is the Chronicles of Narnia. We have books and videos. There are many books in the series. The books they're going to spark some discussion, so make sure you have a discussion guide, something like this one, to help you through the series. But today, I'm going to read a little bit out of this picture book edition of one of the books in the series called The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Now, for me, what this book is about is the good lion, the wicked witch, and the 4 brave but everyday people like you and me who are part of the team. Now, if you don't know what a wardrobe is a clothes closet. The author of the original Chronicles of Narnia is C.S. Lewis, but this is a retelling. This picture book edition is a retelling, and it was written by Hywin Oram, illustrated by Tudor Humphreys. Let's find out what it's about. And I think it's important to note that the lion in the story, his name is Aslan, and he represents Jesus in our lives. Here we go. Once there was, and probably still is, a magic wardrobe. It was made from the wood of a magic apple tree, and you could, if you would, climb through the back to another world, to a magical land called Narnia. And now that world was ruled by an icy white witch, whose wand could turn you to stone. Lucy, the youngest, was first to push past the furry coats and find herself in a snowy wood under a street lamp, where the witch's wickedness had made it always winter. Always winter, never Christmas. Imagine that, came a voice. It was Mr. Tumnus of Fawn. Good evening, he said. Come through the Wild West woods? No, said Lucy, through the wardrobe in the spare room. Wardrobe? Spare room? Never heard of them, said Mr. Tumnus. But someone like you is expected, and a toasty tea awaits you. After tea, to Lucy's surprise, Mr. Tumnus began to weep so hard that there were puddles all over the floor. Lucy had often wanted to cry like that herself, and was most sympathetic, which made Mr. Tumnus blurt out the truth. I'm supposed to hand you over to her wicked majesty, but now that I've met you, I can't and won't, even though I'll be turned to stone if I don't. Lucy promised she wouldn't let that happen. After all, she said, a witch is only a witch until someone stands up to her in the right way. So I'll get my brothers and sister, and that's what we'll do. But before Lucy could persuade Peter and Susan that there was a wicked witch through the wardrobe, Edmund secretly slipped through to see for himself and bumped straight into the witch. At once, the witch saw he was just the kind of boy she could win over with a box of her enchanted Turkish delight candy. And there'll be lots more rooms full of it, she tempted him. If only you'll bring your brother and sisters to my house. I will, said Edmund, stuffing and gobbling, without stopping to think what might happen to them if he did. So, when a few days later, all 4 children did go through the wardrobe together, Edmund was quite ready to deliver the others to the witch, just to get his mouth around more of that magic must-have Turkish delight. Of course, he said nothing as they trudged through the snow in coats borrowed from the wardrobe. He said nothing when they found Mr. Tumnus's cave ransacked. He said not a word when a talking beaver told them Mr. Tumnus had been dragged away. Lucy, on the other hand, was furious. Well, that does it, she cried. I'm not leaving until that white witch has had her wand smashed and her wickedness stamped on. Mr. Beaver was thrilled to hear Lucy talk like this and hurried them back to his house for a what to do about the witch meeting. You have come at exactly the right time, said Mrs. Beaver. You have indeed, said Mr. Beaver, for it is well known that to get rid of the witch, Aslan needs 4 brave and adventurous children. Aslan? Cried Lucy with a shiver of excitement. Who is Aslan? Aslan the Great, of course, said Mr. Beaver, who created this world and all of us in it. And, Mrs. Beaver gathered them closer, they say he will be at the stone table by tomorrow, but shh, the witch mustn't hear of it, and her spies are everywhere. They were soon so busy whispering about meeting Aslan, they did not notice Edmund sneaking out the back to make his way to the witch's house and more Turkish delight. But Nothing could have prepared him for what he found when he got there. Every kind of creature turned to stone, air so cold it was frosted white, and the witch, in the foulest mood, hating him on sight. "Where are your sisters and brothers?" she snapped. "I'll get them to you," Edmund managed to say through chattering teeth. "Right now they're going to the stone to meet someone called Aslan. I knew it. No wonder the temperature's rising in here. Longbeard, my sleigh." But keeping to hidden paths and deep forest, the beavers were already leading Lucy, Peter, and Susan to meet Aslan. "Sleigh bells!" cried Lucy. "Quick, hide, it might be her." "No, look, it must be a sign from Aslan." Lucy looked and her heart leaped. Father Christmas was here. "I bring you what your adventures call for," he said mysteriously. Lucy held hers carefully. It was a small diamond bottle of cordial made from fire flowers, so magical that a few drops would heal the wounded. At the thought of the wounded, Lucy remembered Edmund. She had the feeling something terrible was happening to him. The witch, head and tied like a prisoner, was raging at him as if it was his fault her winter was wearing out. But defeating Aslan would never be that simple. As Lucy and Peter and Susan were discovering at the table, Aslan was nobler than any creature imaginable. He was a lion greater than all lions and wonderful and terrible at the same time. For Lucy, looking at him felt like looking at the sun, only safer. When Aslan spoke, his deep, rich voice seemed to shake the very ground Lucy stood on. "Welcome, children. Long have we waited for you." He was interrupted by the sound of the horn Father Christmas had given Susan. She was giving warning that the witch's captain was slinking toward them. "Help her!" Lucy screamed, and drawing his sword, Peter did. "You are finding your strengths, I see," Aslan glowed. "And now I must send my people for your brother." True to Aslan's promise, in the morning Edmund had been found. "Hear me," the witch screamed at Aslan. "He is a traitor and cannot be rescued." When she had finished, Aslan sent Peter to prepare an army of Narnians, and he quietly offered his own life to save Edmund's. The witch couldn't believe her luck. "Tie him to the table with 1,000 ropes." But as soon as Aslan was dead and the witch left, the stone table had split in two, and Aslan was free. And now, children, there is much to do. And riding on the great lion's back through avenues and sunny glades, past roaring waterfalls and echoing caverns, across mountains, valleys, and acres of blue flowers, on, until they arrived at the witch's house. She was away, of course, but high walls and locked gates did not bother Aslan. "Hold on," he roared, and leaped, and landed in the courtyard among statues of all the creatures the witch had turned to stone. "Mr. Tumnus!" cried Lucy. "Oh, Aslan, I promised him I won't let this happen." "Then keep your promise through me," said Aslan, as he began to breathe warm life into each of the cold statues. And once back in the land of the living, all of them were only too eager to join in the battle against the witch. But as they came bounding up to the battle, they saw stone statues of their side all over the battlefield. Edmund stepped out to save the day. Instead of going for the witch directly, he brought his sword down on her wand, smashing it to pieces. "Fools, all of you!" the witch screeched, turning on Peter. Peter staggered back, and Aslan made his greatest leap yet, straight at the witch. And that was that. As Edmund lay still on the ground, Lucy remembered her fire flower cordial and rushed to his side. "He's badly wounded," said Peter, "but without what he did, the witch would have won. He has earned his place back among you, but Lucy, be quick, there are many wounded. Susan, help her while I get busy with all these statues." When every hurt Narnian was healed, and every stone statue was breathing again, Aslan solemnly crowned the children up at the castle: King Peter, Queen Susan, King Edmund, and Queen Lucy. Afterward, there was music, feasting, and dancing. Aslan, glowing more golden than ever, was about to slip away. But before he did, Lucy found him. "You've never ruled anywhere before," she said, and I'm a bit afraid. "Don't be," said Aslan, "for I'll be with you, even when you do not see me. Besides, you're all brave and adventurous, and I've seen the love in your heart, Lucy, and it overflows. You will be as good a queen as Narnia could ever hope for." As always, Aslan was right. "The prophecy is fulfilled," said Mr. Tumnus as they walked in the woods. "Narnia is Narnia again." "But what's this? An iron tree, lit like a lamp?" Of course it wasn't an iron tree at all. It was the lamppost near the wardrobe. Suddenly, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy felt the pull of their lives on the other side. And the next thing, there they were, not pushing past trees, but rows of fur coats, and they were back. They were home, and to their amazement, not a moment had passed since they'd left. But then, as they were to find out in many other adventures, that was all part of the marvel and mystery of that ever more magical land, Narnia. Thanks for listening.